what I did think as they drive off into the distance. This is like the origin story for Renfield. This is the story of a ghoul.
The Articulate Coven is the original, unofficial fan podcast and community for Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire, The Vampire Chronicles, The Lives of the Mayfair Witches, and the Immortal Universe from AMC and AMC+.
Welcome to the Articulate Coven. We are your hosts. I'm Joel.
I'm Ashley.
And we are the Articulate Coven. Ashley, it's a movie night.
It is indeed. It is indeed. And what a creepy little movie it is.
It's such a creepy little movie. Okay, so we are the unofficial fan podcast and community for Anne Rice's Immortal Universe. We primarily cover the works of Anne Rice. We talk about her books and the TV shows that are based on those books now from AMC.
Which are so good.
So good.
One is.
One of them especially. We'll see. We've got a third chance this next year, Ashley. So
I'll not derail us. I'll not derail us immediately. Let's carry on.
It's totally all right. If you are not a huge fan of Anne Rice and you've stumbled onto this episode, I would point you towards our spin-off podcast, Flan Again, where we have covered Midnight Mass, which we're going to mention actually a time or two in this episode, Ashley. Yeah. And also, you and your lovely husband, Brett, have been covering Fall of the House of Usher, which is available now for our patrons. And starting this week, right after this episode drops, you can get it on YouTube. So if you're a fan of Mike Flanagan, go check that out.
That show's fantastic, y'all. It's so creepy and gross. I love it.
It really, really is. So tonight we're going to be talking about Let the Right One In from 2008. The foreign version, not the American remake that was released in 2010. This is a Swedish film. I got this wrong. I think I said Dutch once upon a time. Really, really interesting. I had not seen the film before. This is based on a book, novel of the same name from 2004 by Thomas Alfredson.
I kind of want to read the book now.
Novel, I think, originally, too.
Yeah.
Really, really interesting, and we're going to break this whole thing down tonight, but in case you are just stumbling upon us for the first time because of the title, we're talking about movie night tonight. We're in the middle of some book club episodes. We're covering Blood and Gold, the book about Marius the vampire from Anne Rice, and starting in January, we'll be back to our regular TV episodes where we're going to be talking about Mayfair Witches on AMC and AMC+. So that's who we are. Let's get into this thing, Ashley.
Yeah.
So you had seen the American version, am I right?
Yes, I had. I had seen that before. And then there is a scene in this movie that I have seen many, many times because it's frequently included in like horror movie like compilation shows. Like I love like a 101 creepiest horror movie moments. Like give me one of those shows where like you give me 8 episodes of just great clips from horror movies. I'm into it. So there's a scene in this I've seen numerous times. Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever seen one of those, actually.
Oh my God, I love it.
I guess I was aware that such things existed, but no, I don't think I've ever seen those.
If you're a horror movie nerd, I highly recommend seeking some of those out because they are a good time. 101 scariest horror movie moments, I think, is one of my favorites. You can see that it's on Prime, I'm pretty sure. It's fantastic.
All right. Let's dive into the specific thing. I've got my Wikipedia page pulled up in case we have questions about the making of the film or something. We'll come back to it. But I want to talk through the thing properly first.
Yeah. I remember we watched the American remake a few years ago. And I remember liking it and being like, oh shit, this is wild. But this feels very different from that one. It felt very much, it's all so quiet. Everything's very quiet. And it's just, everything felt so intimate. I don't remember feeling that watching the American version, but maybe it just didn't make a big of an impression on me at the moment. And I just was kind of more struck by the big, like, vampire moments of it all.
Yeah. So feels like a very low budget film doesn't look like a very low budget film, right? Like it's shot beautifully, framed excellently.
It's gorgeous.
Man, there's I was going to talk about this later, but we'll go ahead and start with this because I think the look is one of the things, especially for American moviegoers. If you're not very experienced in foreign films, I think the cinematography is something that translates, right? Like obviously visual style goes across languages. And the thing I think that you can take away from this, even if you're not very experienced in in that arena is how lovely the whole thing looks. It is beautiful, but it's also like bleak. And first of all, I forget
cold,
how
so fucking cold.
Well, and Northern Europe's dark, right?
Yeah,
like their nights are so long. In the winter, that makes perfect sense how far north they are. Like we forget that down here close to the equator where we are, Ashley.
Jesus, right?
Anyway, the whole look of the thing from the beginning is like it's
gray.
removed. It's removed a little bit too from all of the action, but then also from the violence inherently, which is because of the subject matter, I think is absolutely a choice. Like it puts you at this very clinical level from everything that's going on, which is I think sort of where Oscar is seeing all these things from too. Which is fitting. You know, the main character is this little boy Oscar who is
12 years old. Okay.
Yeah, let's start at the beginning, Ashley. This movie opens with squeal like a pig.
Yes. Yes. Which,
listen, a kid standing in his drawers, holding a knife.
In his tidy whities, holding a knife.
Saying, squeal like a pig. That's a hell of a way to open your movie, actually.
It truly is. And it does, it sets you up for, okay, what is happening now? But you learn pretty quick that, he's trying to get himself to be brave enough to deal with these assholes he goes to school with. So they've got some real Stephen King level bullies he's having to deal with.
Man, I literally yesterday, as we're recording this, I finished my reread of It.
Oh,
and
shit.
I had forgotten because the recent movies don't do this. I'm excited. I'm going to watch the miniseries and I'm going to watch the recent remake movies.
They're all so good.
Now. Yeah, they're all. I do remember they're great.
But it's been
a while since I've seen the miniseries. I don't remember whether it does this or not. The movies do not. They separate. It's like the kids get their story and then the grown-up versions get their story. In the book, though, they literally take place at the same time, really. Like they're two encounters, but
overlap.
They're not. Yes, and you get these overlapping stories, but that is especially, I think, pertinent in the bullies. Because you get to know those terrible, terrible children pretty well, honestly. And they're all terrible for a reason, right?
Yeah.
And Henry Bowers in particular, because you see him again as an adult, it's like, God, what a tragic story that was. Like, you want to hate him.
Yeah, his father's a fucking monster,
like... And they're all poisoned by this place, which is inherently evil. Anyway... I have that in the back of my mind as I see these kids, and I'm glad that I did, honestly, because the little shit that tortures Oscar the worst, one of the reasons he tortures him is because he's got a big brother who's even worse than he is.
A fucking monster. Yeah, absolutely.
Terrible children make terrible children.
Yeah. Yeah. And somewhere along the way, there's an adult that started the fuckery to begin with.
Yes. Well, but that's what I'm saying. I think when you have a terrible childhood like that, one of the things that happens is you end up taking that, like you never fix yourself. And so you end up just pouring that shit out on somebody else in the future. Goodness gracious.
It's an actual choice. Like people can have, I was having this conversation with someone the other day just about how she was talking about somebody she knows that has had a really fucked up childhood and has had a really fucked up adulthood as well. And I was like, yeah, but at some point, we have to choose to not make other people collateral damage of our trauma.
Yes.
And I mean, as someone who did not have the most fun and happy all the time, squeaky, clean childhood with an undiagnosed bipolar alcoholic father, I can tell you that at some point you make a choice to start healing, and you need to make that choice. And our bullies do not make that choice.
But there is someone in this movie who does, though. We'll get to that a little bit later. All right. But we start with our spooky-ass kid standing here talking about make him squeal.
And it's always a creepy kid, right? There's always some creepy blonde, blank-eyed blonde kid to make us uncomfortable.
And then we see what I assume, at the moment anyway, as I watch it, is a dad covering a window for his little girl that he just brought in. And Ashley, much like you and I have talked about in the past, show me a spooky box being dragged into a house. I'm going to assume it's a vampire box.
Yeah,
you cover a window at night for the little girl. That's a vampire
Yep.
girl, is what
That's
that
a vampire girl. Yeah, yeah. And this is the vampire box theory will be proven once again in this film. You know, it is. If you, I will not abide traveling with someone with a trunk. Let me just tell you, if you got a trunk, I'm giving you the fucking side eye. It's like the pernicious anemia. Like, what the fuck? We are not buying your trunk travel, friend. It is 2024.
So we very quickly see exactly what this fella is doing as his night detail duties anyway. And it immediately brought to mind, like, how far would you go for your kiddo? You know, I watched and loved the first few seasons, at least, of Dexter. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I absolutely could wrap my mind around is the way that Harry talked himself into what he did with Dexter as a child. It's like, what do you do if you find you're raising a monster, actually? Can you make a monster that you can sort of be proud of? Can you make a monster that has a ethical code? Well, I don't know what you're... Anyway, but it also reminds me of, like, The Road, right? Which is the same... It's a different type of story, but again, it's like, how far would you go for your kiddo?
Yeah.
What you gonna do?
It's tough stuff, but then the relationship is also not what it seems either.
No, it's such a turn of events in this. I will say, right here at the beginning, this fella is killing this stranger in the most well-lit forest in Sweden.
I mean,
like, it's
can
night.
we talk about it? It's like the moon, the full moon, bright ass reflecting off of all the snow in the fucking world and this forest. These trees are all spread out. They're like aspen trees. They're like fucking spread out and all biologically connected, and we're gonna fucking hang this guy upside down and drain him. Jesus.
Man, okay.
Like, you got time for that shit. You already saw another person in there. There was already, at the beginning, there was already another person that he was like, oh, maybe?
He is so bad at the killing, which makes me wonder how, like...
How long have they been trying this out?
Again,
I mean...
we're talking through this like you maybe haven't seen it. I'm going to tell you now, if you haven't seen this movie, you should absolutely go watch it before you hear the rest of our conversation, because we're going to go ahead and spoil something. We're going to spoil it all, honestly. But, Ashley, the way that this film ends, with Oscar and Ellie riding off on the train, I immediately thought to myself, oh, is this just the origin story of that guy we met at the beginning? I mean, not literally. That guy obviously brought her into the neighborhood with Oscar. But I'm wondering
but it could turn into this. This is what
does Oscar's story end basically like that guy's did? Yeah,
That's awful.
At first, I was like, oh, that's her father. And then somewhere along the way, I guess the second time she runs him out of the bedroom or something, or tells him off, I'm like, oh, that is not her father.
That is not her dad. Yeah.
Who is this guy then? And it occurs to me, I bet it was a childhood pal.
Well, and I was reading about the book, and I think it's more explicit in the book that he's a pedophile of some sort.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so I don't really know, but I love the fact that I mean, I don't know all the details because obviously I haven't read it. Now I'm very interested in trying to find like an English translation of this book.
Right.
But yeah, so it's kind of, it said that what I read was that they kind of glossed over some of that in the storytelling and more focused on the two kids and kind of their connection and their friendship is sort of the focus.
Well, okay, that makes sense though. There's like there's the lingering look when he's outside the locker room or whatever when he's trying to get the kid later, right before he meets his end.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But there is this kind of vibe though that what you read I think is I mean could totally happen to Oscar, you know.
Well, that's
he could just grow old and like he's in love with her and he'll be an old man in love with this 2,000-year-old 12-year-old.
But also the very nature of the vampirism in this film again sort of explains like why. Well, at first I was like, why is he doing it like this? Like, isn't there? But can't you just like drug him and bring him back or something? No, if she bites him, they turn. Ashley. So she can't be creating vampires all over Europe. That's a problem for her too.
Yeah.
So he's got to go out and drain him. Which again, like I just think, how many people's Oscar going to have to kill?
Yeah. To keep her alive.
the read that you gave though from the book makes a whole lot more sense in the scenes later where she's like, I'm just like you want to kill people. He's like, I haven't killed anybody yet. She's like, yeah, but you would if you could.
But you want to. There's a part of you that kind of wants to kill these fucking asshole kids that you're having to deal with.
At the very least, he revels in that as we get to it. But it's like, man, it's just such an interesting. Now I've got to read the book because I've got to know if I read that wrong. But I gotta say, my read is an interesting one too. I wonder if does the American version play with that at all? I don't know.
I don't remember. Like I said, I don't. I remember it being a really good movie, and I enjoyed watching it. But I don't remember it didn't stick with me the way that I feel like this is going to stick with me. You know.
Okay, we get Oscar's murder notebook pretty early on. He cuts the clipping of the of the murder out, and then he pastes it into. You're like,
it's got
what?
It's got a sweet little murder book he's made. And Brett was like, look, he's into true crime, just like you, babe.
Yeah, listen, though, if you keep a binder full of them, Ashley.
I've never put together my own newspaper clippings.
Just make that shit digital at least so you don't have it, embossed on your desk.
Keep a quiet footprint is what I say. Keep a quiet footprint. I'm on enough government watch lists just because of the content that I consume.
I mean, I feel like... even James Gum probably waited until he was in his teens before he started his murder notebook. You know, like this is early. This kid's got troubles.
Yeah. His parents are having a divorce. His dad seems to be some sort of miscreant.
Man, okay. All right, let's skip right there because there's so little given about either. Honestly, there's so little given about any of the adults in this movie.
There's so little given about anything, to be honest. Everything is very we're watching this story unfold. There's not there's not a lot of backstory. There's not a lot of time taken to develop anything. It's kind of like we're coming into the story as it's happening, and we're just along for the ride. They don't really care if we know about the past of these characters.
Well, but specifically. The adults, the only ones that we meet at all are our little diner club that keeps having run-ins with our girl, unfortunately, to their end.
Bless.
But that little group, we don't know much about them, and the rest of the adults might as well not be present. They honestly, there's a great scene in I guess it's about halfway through the movie. We're looking at the classroom. She's reading The Hobbit to Oscar's class, and it's shot over her shoulder, so you don't ever see the teacher's face, but you see all of the kids. And it reminded me very, very much of the Charlie Brown adults.
Yes.
You see them from the waist up or whatever,
Absolutely.
and they're always what the adults are doing doesn't matter because we're not in their world. This isn't a story about adults.
No, they do a really good job of capturing that perspective too, and it's kind of like you said, you're seeing it all. We're seeing it all from Oscar's perspective. It's like we're seeing it all through a troubled child's eyes too. It's very interesting. They do a really good job of creating that perspective. And this is again a foreign film. We don't know the language. We don't know. But it's still so effective, and I love that about a good movie is just a good movie. It doesn't matter what language it's in.
100%. I mean, honestly, even if you don't have the captions, this thing plays well as a silent film. I would think almost.
Yeah. It's very quiet. Period. There's not a lot of dialogue.
Yes, I will say. Speaking one way, it would lose definitely in a silent film version would be the Foley work. The Foley work in this thing is fucking fantastic. This vampirism and these attacks are it's goopy and squishy without the only gore we see at all really is his face scars, when the caretaker dies.
Yeah. And we see blood.
Lots of blood.
But that's not
But it sounds so wet and disgusting.
It does. It's very squishy.
Yes.
If this was a Netflix production, the closed captioning would be so hilarious,
The other thing, though, that I wanted to say about the Foley work, and this is my connection to Mike Flanagan, I could not imagine but that Flanagan and his team on Midnight Mass were inspired by the stomach rumbles in this. Did you hear how close it was to what happened? As Pruitt, especially, we see that happen several times in Midnight Mass.
And she doesn't
sounds so much the same.
Yeah, and she doesn't attack in what seems like a a traditional way. She jumps on backs. And then at one point when she was killing the pub club friend, she was like eating his head like our vampire, like our priest did in Midnight Mass. I was like, oh, she's making him a Slurpee. And then...
And the neighbor licks the blood, and it's the same. And when she licks the blood up off the floor, I was like, this is, I bet Mike Flanagan loves Let the Right One In.
I bet he does. I bet if we Googled that, then we would find that he said some words about it somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I do love, though. Okay, well, let's talk about the vampirism a little bit. So first of all, they have to be invited. The movie is called Let the Right One In. I did imagine that was probably going to be the thing that they were alluding to there. But specifically, I love it. He asks her. He just goes, so what happens if I don't?
Yeah. And then she shows him, and it is awful.
Fucking horrific. It's so worse than anything I've seen before.
You can't sneak into anybody's house, ma'am. I would stay in my own place. Invite friends over. You just have guests. Maybe you don't go over to people's houses if that's your body's reaction to it. I mean, I feel like my social battery gets drained, and I feel like that, but blood has never come out of my eyes.
Well, not all my orifices at once anyway. Like out of her pores and shit.
Out of my scalp and hairline. Yeah, it was pretty nasty.
Okay, the first time really that I started to ask myself about the relationship with the caretaker, which by the way, he has a name. I didn't remember seeing it in the captions though. Did she ever call him by his name, the caretaker?
Not that I caught.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, not that I registered. And I kind of, the closed captioning really helped, or the subtitles really helped pick up the character names, since it's names that we're not used to hearing and things like that. But that wasn't anything that I had really caught.
No, I don't think she calls him by his name at all, which means nobody does, because she's the only one that ever speaks to him. But it's like, I think your read from the book is there. I just didn't know it, and so I wasn't looking for those clues. That's fascinating though. Now we really do have to look up on that. Okay, but he comes and tells her. I don't know. This is 45 minutes in, maybe. He comes and tells her that the people know what he looks like.
Yeah,
and they've saw her with him, and so implying that he's got to take care of it. And she says, "No, you don't have to." Actually, I read this all so wrong, and I was so confused by what he was doing, because he says that, and I go, oh, he's going to kill those people. He's going to kill the neighbors. But then he goes to the school or whatever, and he's watching the kids through the window, and I'm like, what are you doing? And then again, here he is tying this guy up in, like, obviously a situation where he's going to get caught.
Right. And you were in a school, basically, and this kid's got friends waiting on him. Like, people are going to notice this kid not coming home today, But
he brought the acid, and I just feel like this was his plan all along.
Maybe he was going to get her one more meal, and then...
I mean, maybe, but how was he going to get out if he was going to pour the... I mean, I guess that was for later. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh. But or maybe just in case, just in case it comes to a head tonight, I have this acid ready to throw on myself.
Let me just tell you, though, if I decide that I'm done being the ghoul for my friendly neighborhood vampire... I'm going to find a more peaceful way to go out, I feel like.
I mean, well, maybe he felt like he needed to suffer a little bit.
Okay, so that's fair. And especially if the book read is right, then yes, you're right. If he's a pedophile, he can burn his face and fall out the window.
Yeah,
that's fine.
We're fine. We're fine with that. We're fine with that for him.
It was a little, and I mean, I'm guessing now that is part of, because of the story of the book that they were alluding to there. But I did think, it's strange that that's so gruesome when the rest of the movie has really not been. The rest, it's all in the shadows or off camera or out of focus. The violence is almost always, and then that is
at a distance. It's usually at a distance,
right up here in your face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. The other thing
linger on it.
We do, and I was like, oh, I could see his teeth through his cheek. That's some real Two-Face stuff right there.
That's right. We do it while she's drinking, and then when he falls on the ground later, we see it again. Oh, man.
Yeah. Yep. The other thing I really liked that I thought was kind of gruesome and excellent, it's not, gory by any stretch of the imagination, but when they do pull out the pub club friend from the frozen lake, and he's stuck in the ice with his little arms and legs frozen. bless his heart.
Okay, that reminds me, by the way. So his name was Jock, but his best buddy, who gets so hung up on his death and it ends up causing him problems later, is Lack.
Laka?
Yeah. I love that name, especially for that character, because that character seems to be kind of a bum.
Oh, man. He's but he's really torn up about his friend missing, and then he's very, very rude to his girlfriend.
I was going to say, feels like maybe he was sort of a schmuck before Jock died. It was just like he was living for Jock there.
I don't think he's very thoughtful. Let's put it that way. He is not a thoughtful lover. He is not a thoughtful lover. He does not care if you get yours, Virginia. He does not care.
No, he doesn't. Before we get to his conclusion, though, let's talk for a second about the skating trip from hell, Ashley.
Oh, my God. This is the worst field trip anyone's ever fucking taken.
Okay.
What
so
in
first
the
of all,
Swedish hell are we doing on this frozen lake?
I felt so bad for that poor teacher man, Mr. Avila or whatever his name
bless
is.
his heart.
He was so looking forward to a good day on the ice.
Yeah,
and
just
first
wanna...
the kids need to pee, and he's like,
Yeah.
God damn it! All right, well let's go pee.
This already sucks. My God.
But then he's watching because he's like, Oscar's getting us some shit over there. What's that going on? I totally, by the way, think that Mr. Avila was with us and was gonna let Oscar whap the shit out of that dude with the he was not going over there until after Oscar had hit him with that stick.
I'm not gonna go over there until I hear screaming. It's not my business.
Which, by the way, man, okay, so he straight up like ruptures the kid's ear, I guess, when he hits him because he's deaf later. But like, what the hell was that stick? I thought when he first did it that it was like something from like a road flag or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely felt like that. And then I was like, maybe did our blood provider, when he was pushing the dude into the lake, did he use that? I was trying to remember if that had been
Absolutely,
and so I was
used
like
that to push him in.
Yeah. I was more thinking about that. I was like, what? Oh, this is all gross and weird. But then I was really happy that asshole got hit in the head, so that worked for me.
Okay, but see, that's a perfect example of how, like, the movie puts you at just enough of a distance from everything that you are, like, absolutely fine with him beating all three of those kids if they want some.
Yeah, well, they whipped him with fucking... they lashed him with a damn switch earlier, too. These kids are dickheads.
Yeah, and I also like the dynamic there, though, because, like, okay, so there's clearly the ringleader and the two, not hapless, but both of them
are not as... they would not be as dicky if he wasn't around.
Here's what it really comes down to, Ashley. It's not that they're quite as much of a... it's not that they're less of a dick than the first kid is. It's that they're less brave than the first kid is.
Or maybe a little less violent. Maybe a little
deep
less
down
violent. A little less violent. Like they don't like get off on this the same way this other kid does. It's like, well, I'll bully him because it's okay, fun thing to do with my friends. And if I don't, then you're going to be an asshole to me because you're an asshole.
Yes. But and again, this goes back to the Stephen King of it all. In those, like, there's one terrible bully, and then there are other children who allow it and who, help foster it. And it's like, that's society, man. Most of us are not supervillains, just like most of us aren't superheroes.
Most of us just ignore what's happening around us.
Exactly. When you see the kid in the street in danger, do you just raise your paper and walk back inside, or do you rush out into the street to, to aid? Anyway, this movie, I feel like, is mostly full of people who are longing to turn the other way and just, like, not pay attention at all.
Well, they set it up that way. They set this place up to be very kind of bleak and sort of nothing. Like, we don't see shops. We don't see a day in the life of any of these people. We just see what's happening to them. You know what I mean? And so you don't see anything charming about this town they live in. You don't see anybody really go to work. You don't see any of that. So it's just, ooh.
It's just doldrums. It's just doldrums.
Yeah.
Lovely Swedish doldrums.
Yeah, it feels so gross. So gross.
Feels like a sad painting.
Yeah. A sad black and white painting.
So right after the skating trip, they're like down in the...
Can we talk about the
Yes.
the two poor little tiny kids that find the dude's body.
Find the body. Yes.
Oh, they're screaming. That's a really cool sound part too, because the kid starts screaming because he got hit with the pole, and then the two little I can't put my arms down kids are like so bundled up and in the snow, and they start just screaming because they have found this dead body.
What kills me is when Mr. Avia or whatever his name is gets over there. He grabs one of them and is like walking off, but the other one's just laying in the snow, like crying still.
God, this is terrible. Worst field trip ever.
I did think like, boy, none of those kids are going to be okay. Actually, they all like watched him carve that guy out of the ice and drag him up with the winch.
Policia.
Oh my goodness.
Policia.
Okay, so but right after that, Ellie and Oscar are together, and Oscar is, I don't know what he's doing with the knife at first, and then he cuts his hand. And I was like, oh, he's figured out she's a vampire.
No, he's
Ashley,
like, we're going to be blood brothers.
Did you do that blood brother shit when you were a kid?
No, because HIV, come on.
Man, that's what I was like, not just HIV. First of all, no knives, thank you very much. But I'm like, I don't want to go get a tetanus shot.
No,
like, just
look,
let's don't get any further than that.
My mother's a nurse, and I was very aware of infectious diseases.
Yeah.
And I mean, we grew up in the 90s.
I was so like, no to the blood brother thing. I didn't even imagine that's what he was doing.
And why would anyone, like, why does it have to be that fucking dramatic? Why do you have to gash open your whole fucking hand?
With a big ass knife, bud.
Prick your finger with a needle and fucking get on with it.
Oh, man. Oh, it just killed me, though. But no, so he does it, and then she goes crazy, and it's like, get out, get out.
She's like, because I'm going to eat you if you don't go.
Well, and then right after that is when she attacks the neighbor from the diner club. And I think literally there's like an escalation type thing. It happens a couple of times with her where...
And we see her hungry.
Yes.
We
there's
definitely...
like hunger. She's got control, but there's also... It can go further than her control, it feels like.
Well, and when she's talking to her blood dealer about like they're having an argument about him failing, and like, do I have to go do this myself? Like, this is really not great. This isn't the way. She's angry. They're having like an actual argument fight, and I think maybe the heightened emotions come into play too when she's in hunger, when she's needing a snack. Look, we all get hangry, Joel.
Ain't that the truth? So she attacks the neighbor lady, but she gets interrupted, which is the difference. So when she killed, or when they killed Jock earlier, she had snapped his neck.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't come back. But this woman's left to heal.
Yeah.
Boy, she heals pretty quickly, too.
She does. She does. And then you know what, though? Cats don't like her anymore.
Okay. All right. The house full of cats going crazy on her, I thought was a great moment. It was a little funny, but also like super freaky. And it really reminded me of Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman in Batman Returns.
Yeah.
She doesn't get attacked by her cats, but she's like, there's the scene after she falls
lick
off the
her
building
alive.
where yes.
They like nibble on her and lick her alive. Yeah, this was really kind of, it tickled me a bit, and I was happy to have something to laugh about because I have not laughed in the entirety of this Swedish film.
It just, man, let me tell you something. Yeah, it's like, oh, Ingmar Bergman was Swedish, I think. So like this checks out actually.
There's a real bleak tone to it all. Which,
I'm telling you, it's just too dark there for too long, Ashley. They don't have hopeful thoughts. 9 months out of the year, Okay, there's a great line in here as she and Oscar are talking after she's shown him what she is, basically. He says, "Are you old?" And she says, "I'm 12, but I've been 12 for a long time." How old is she, Ashley, do you think? How old is Ellie? Hundreds of years old? I think she's very old. We see the egg, for instance.
I feel like she's got to be at least a couple hundred years old.
That's what I'm saying. Like, Ellie's been doing this a long time. It also makes me wonder, is she 12? like Claudia, for instance, is the obvious example from Interview with the Vampire and the Anne Rice novels.
Right. Do you stay 12 forever, or do you look 12 forever?
And it's different, right? Ellie, she says she is not a girl, and she does not act like a normal girl for sure, but Oscar doesn't act like a normal boy either, right? So is it just that she is this monster as well as being a little girl, or is she mentally hundreds of years old like we imagine she is physically, or is it just I don't know. I wonder how it works in this. Has she advanced or is she still stuck in that age?
Yeah, it is because we don't know. We don't see enough of her like inner monologue at all. We don't see any of that.
No.
So we don't know at all. Like we only know what she's telling us.
Can I ask you, were you ever bothered by the way she is presented physically in the film? Like, there were several times. I mean, obviously, we get the one shot as she's getting dressed where Oscar sees her crotch and he's like, "Oh," and moves out. But I thought several times in the film she was framed in a way and dressed in a way that is supposed to make you uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I would think that story in the book, I feel like they're doing some of that here, right?
Yeah, and I do think that there is just going back to more book stuff that they don't really delve into, something in her past that maybe she is not a girl, but she was cut. She was
like castrata.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that would be, man. Okay, now I got to read the book.
I know, we've got to read this book. I told you, we got to read this fucking book.
Is this like a Cry to Heaven sequel?
I do not know, but I'm telling you right now, there's more going on than we realize.
And again, it's just because there's so little dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't, in the American version, they would have just been, let me tell you my story.
I feel like they don't go into any of that sort of thing. I think, it's Chloe Grace Moretz. She's clearly a little girl. Like it's that vibe is not there at all. There, it's much more about, I'm not a girl, I'm a monster. I'm a vampire.
Sure.
Yeah. That is not like this had a whole bunch of like layers that I did not pick up from in the American remake.
All right. Well, it's good to know that there is more there to chew on.
Yeah,
that
no,
we're sort of only half seeing.
Well, and she's like, she's out in the. There's so much about her that makes you uncomfortable. The way she physically is, like standing on that jungle gym. Like just standing there, like, oh, that was so creepy. And when she jumped down, the way she kind of floated, like I think so much about her is supposed to make us uncomfortable in general, the way she moves, there's times, and Brett pointed this out, there's times where she looks older.
Yes.
Where they like see her age almost. You see like this flash of her being an older version of herself is very interesting.
Yes. Especially the moment when she's licking his blood from the floor and she looks up at him.
When she looks up at him.
I just thought it was like the lighting or something, but I was like, oh man, they're doing such crazy things. They're like giving her, like almost like hollowness to her face, which is very very impressive. Very, very impressive stuff. Yeah, let's talk about Lackey for a minute. Just can't let his buddy go, Katie.
No, he's
what
so
do they say
sad.
about curiosity and cats, Ashley?
It's gonna kill you. It's gonna kill you. Yeah. Poor Virginia, though. She does not come through this okay. His lady friend, she is ready to go. She's like, this is not good. I'm telling you right now, not good.
But see, that's what you were talking about earlier, where you're like, things are a choice. It's a choice to pass down the evil that's been given to you if you want to or not. And she's like, nope. Matter of fact, I'm not going to be eating anybody's blood. I'm not going to kill anybody. I'm out, actually.
Go ahead and open those blinds.
And man, again, it's like, what a rare choice. It feels like when we see this story play out again and again and again, people choose self-preservation.
Right. Generally speaking, but we've seen two. We've seen Riley, our hero in Midnight Mass, and we see our poor Lady Virginia, who I'm sure I'm not saying her Swedish version of her name correctly, but
it's pretty close.
She just fucking explodes into flames and like big old flames.
Yeah. Okay, but that leads to Lackey in distress, and now having watched her burn, goes, all right, that fucking kid that I know has been killing people, yeah, it's got to be a monster. Maybe he doesn't say the word vampire as quickly as Oscar does.
Right. But also, kudos to fucking Oscar, and way to not be a person of the island of Crockett.
She's like, you're a vampire,
You're a vampire, right? And she's like, yeah, that's it. That's the stuff.
I mean, I live off of blood. Yeah, that's a vampire friend.
Yeah. It's that pernicious anemia.
Yeah. He comes there and he's going to kill her. Like, that's what he's coming to do.
Yeah.
Oscar would have killed him, right?
Yeah.
If she didn't rise up and save herself.
100%, yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Which,
at this point, he's pretty much chosen her. At this point, he's chosen her. So I think that's very clear that he would definitely have knifed that guy.
Well, and it shows me that she chose well. You know, and she says at the beginning, I can't be your friend. And maybe she didn't know exactly where this was going to go. I don't think she orchestrated it. But like, once she got to know him a little bit, she decided very quickly, I think, that this was her new fella.
Yeah, this is going to be fine.
Which, makes me think she just could as well have known, which, by the way, the caretaker does have a name. It's Hakan. Hakan. But yeah, Hakan or Hakan. He absolutely could have gotten on this ride way earlier than we imagine and just been trucking her around the world for decades.
Draining people left, right, and center.
I will say, you imagine if he'd been doing it for very long, he might have gotten better at it.
So. Yeah. His dumb little murder kit. And then he leaves everything. At what point, he leaves everything behind. He leaves things at the crime scene. I'm like, you are
when he runs off and leaves those things there I'm like, dude, God, yeah, at least get the blood. Goodness gracious.
Right, you did all of that. You didn't even take the blood with you.
Man, I love the setup of the final scene though at the pool.
Okay, so this scene's fucked up.
It's the whole thing is fucked up. But like the very setup when they call the quote unquote nicer kid calls to check if he's going to be there. It immediately, even before you pan out and you see that the bullies are behind him, I'm like, this is not. Yeah, this is not going to go well.
This is going to be some Carrie shit.
But they're able to ratchet it up though, Ashley, because even I didn't imagine at that point that they're going to drown him. Yeah. I'd go, they're going to burn his clothes. Like last time they put him in the toilet.
With him. Yeah, they're going to
burn his clothes.
Yeah,
maybe they'll jump him when he gets out. You know,
they're going to hurt him. They're going to physically hurt him.
Fucking drowning him though was a step too far, even for the little shit. As his brother was doing it, he's like, "Come on, man!
Come on, man! This is like I can hear out of one ear. Let's calm down." Yeah. This is the scene, by the way, that I mentioned that is in that horror compilation show that I watched. Because it's just like how terrifying it is because he's underwater, and again, we're seeing it. Not through his eyes, but again, sort of through his perspective, because we're underwater with him. We do not know what's happening above that pool until we see those legs getting dragged backwards so fast to the other side of the pool.
Well, okay, but even at first when that happens, I'm obviously like, oh, Ellie came back. She's going to save him. But then I'm like, well, why is she letting this dude continue to hold him underwater? I didn't even think about he's already dead at that point. Yeah. Like he's probably missing his arm already at that point. It's just like propped up holding Oscar.
It just hasn't it's floating for a second. It hasn't, Yeah. It's
such a crazy little scene.
A decapitated head in the pool, a decapitated arm in the pool. This would keep you out of the pool for a couple of minutes, I would think, if you were present for that.
Yes. Well, okay. And let's talk about the little fat kid bully
that's on the side crying. They leave him alone.
Well, because he had sat it out, right? When they're doing the crime,
he's
like,
I'm
not going to run because they'd hurt me, but I'm not doing this.
Yeah, he did sit it out.
And so I think very specifically Ellie didn't, and he's got his eyes covered.
Yeah,
crying,
he's like, I'm not watching.
I'm like, but again, that little kid's not going to be okay.
No.
Man, I don't know that I have ever seen a more innocuous scene that plays more horrifically, though, than him on the train with her in the box. Like, it's so menacing, even though there's nothing to it, right? Like, there's not... This whole movie feels like that, though, honestly, Ashley. Like, even with the violence that happens in the pool, we don't see any of it.
We don't
really.
see it. Yeah, we see the effect of it, the aftermath of it. We don't see it
like
in
the
action.
one bloody arm and a couple of piles of bodies, basically.
But even
when we
even
zoom
then,
up.
we don't see how it happened. We don't see her rip that arm off. We don't see her rip that head off. We don't see any of that.
No.
I hope she ate well, because it's probably going to be a couple of days before she's going to be able to snack again.
Well, and I mean, and it sort of makes you wonder, like, how do two children set themselves up in the world? I mean, is like their whole life from now on like blank check?
Yeah,
it's like Mr. McIntosh will be here tomorrow.
Right. I mean, and she, like, I guess, I mean, she's committed a horrible, like, they can't hide they left those pieces of those kids there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. But you got to imagine, sort of like, again, to go back to the It novel, like all the things that happen in Derry, when the cops get there and they write this all up, they're going to, like, Oscar died too, right? Or Oscar was taken by whoever did this.
Whoever
they won't
did
pin
it.
it on Oscar, is what I'm saying. Like, Oscar will be another victim. And so wherever they go. But I'm saying, like, still, you got to rent an apartment or something, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you do that as two children, as two
you're
12-year-olds?
fucking 12. You're fucking 12. You can't do anything. I don't know. It was the 80s, Joel. You could get away with a lot of shit in the 80s. No one needed to see ID. No one needed to see a credit card. You could do that shit over the phone.
But, okay, here's the one thought, though, that I had as a little levity as they're in the train, which, by the way, I looked it up on the Wikipedia scene, or the Wikipedia page. Ellie taps the word kiss to Oscar in code, and he taps back kiss there in the last scene. That's what they're tapping to each other in the train. But I did think, as they drive off into the distance, this is like the origin story for Renfield. This is the story of a ghoul. I mean, honestly, like, this is how to make a ghoul. Like, he's not a monster himself, but he's worse, honestly, because she needs the blood to live, and he just needed a friend.
Yeah, he just needed a friend really bad. Oh, bless his heart. Bless her heart. Don't sit next to anybody on a train that has a big box.
No, don't let them into your neighborhood. Don't. If the preacher brings one into the parsonage, throw that preacher out, y'all.
Yeah.
There are no boxes.
No big crates. No big crates.
Trunks.
No trunks. No traveling with trunks.
If you can't check it like a suitcase, then you can't bring it in. No, thank you.
You are suspicious immediately. It is not. We are not on the Titanic. You are not dragging your clothes across the Atlantic.
Man, poor Mr. Avila, because I'm assuming those bullies, they didn't kill him. They just locked him out. He gets back into that building at some point. And he's like,
what a fucking horror sight. He's probably the one that has to call the cops.
Well, or I thought he might be like, I've got to move. I'll leave town tonight, actually.
Everybody
They're
thinks
never
he
going to
did it.
believe that I'm not. Yep. He's like a single guy working at the school where the kids keep dying.
I've been teaching the nerdy kid how to do water aerobics. That sounds normal.
Man, Ashley, our next movie club is Underworld, and I got to tell you, that is not exactly a light movie, but I am very much looking forward to something that is not quite so dreary. This was a good movie. But goddamn, it's been a long week, and this was a heavy film. It was a very heavy film. I cannot believe that I hadn't seen this yet.
Whew. I think that I in my brain thought I had, because I'd watched the American version, and also I've seen a couple of scenes from it a few times, and so in my brain I think I had decided I'd seen it, but after sitting down and watching it, I was like, no, I absolutely have not watched this.
Yeah.
And it's going to stick with me for a few days. It's going to stick with me for a few days.
Yeah, I mean, and in a good way. When I say that it is bleak, sometimes bleak cinema is good, right? Like, I like some dark film. I like Chinatown, and Chinatown's about as bleak and dark as you can get. The whole fucking thing is terrible. Right.
This
is pretty bad, though, guys.
Yeah, you can just kind of lean into the horror of it all. It's sad, and it's tragic, and it's very well done.
Well, and again, like, how many movies make you fall in love with a 12-year-old serial killer, right? Like Oscar driving away in that train, you're like, how many thousands of people is he going to kill?
Yeah.
And they don't seem to have any code about how they pick them, right? Like it's not, these two little murderers aren't very particular either, it seems like. There's no code or rhyme or reason. It's like, who's convenient?
Yeah. Are you close? Are you nearby? Can I hide your body
and
somewhere?
Thorne would not approve.
No, this is not. No, neither would Lestat. Clean up after yourself. You got to put that body somewhere.
Yeah, dumping it in the Swedish lake is not the way to go, man. Oof, goodness gracious.
I do commend, like, you remember there was a hole in there and shoved him under the ice. I got to commend you for that, at least.
Oh my goodness. Thank you to everybody who helped suggest this, though. Our patrons chose this movie and all of our movie nights that we're going to do between here and Christmas. And yeah, I'm really, really glad that we got to watch this because neither one of us had seen it in the end. And I got to tell you, we both got a book recommendation out of it, too.
Right?
If you enjoyed this, if you'd watched it for the first time, first of all, let me just suggest to you, if you did watch this for the first time and you don't, as a rule, watch foreign films, try a few more. And the fact of the matter is that the way that they tell their stories is different. Yeah. The way that they approach it, those kinds of stories they tell on a regular basis are different. And so
the general vibe is different. Like the whole, like, it's a whole thing, but it's great. It's really fun to, I've seen a couple of Norwegian films over the past couple of years that have been fantastic. There was one that was like Troll, like a troll or mountain troll or something. Like it was fucking awesome fun. It was real good.
That one's really good. And if you've never seen it, there's another one called Troll Hunter, which is made like a mockumentary.
Oh, I have not seen that one.
About a guy who hunts trolls, and
I love it.
So freaking good, man. Yeah, both of those are really, really good, honestly.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it, but there was one that Kelly and I watched last year around Christmas time, which is, I think this one was Swedish as well, which is about elves, but like little elves.
Uh-huh.
But not the kind you want.
Or like little
around.
Shitty elves, little bastard elves.
like little eat you elves.
I like it.
Really, 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 really fun. Little like a TV series. It was like 6 episodes or something. This family goes out into the countryside for Christmas time or something for a holiday.
Very
really cool. Anyway, thank you to everybody who helped us watch this. I'm super excited to get more of this story, honestly, by reading the book and to hear your feedback on it as well. Those of you who have enjoyed this in the past and who helped suggest it for us. Now for something completely different, Ashley. Like I said, we're going to go back into our book club next week with part 2 of Blood and Gold. We're going to be talking about Marius and Mael.
Yes, they do love to hate each other.
Boy, don't they, though. They both... Okay, so I'm watching Dark Shadows right now.
Yes.
And the 2 of the main characters in the first few seasons are Roger Collins, who's like the eldest son of the rich family that the show's about, and then Burke Devlin, who is someone from Roger's past that they now hate each other. Mm-hmm. Burke went to jail for 10 years or something. Anyway, every scene that they're in, it's basically like, well, he only did this because of me. They both just think the world revolves around the 2 of them. That is Marius and Mael. They both just point at each other and it's Jacques Hughes again and again, pretty much.
And they're both dickheads. But
very much so. So we're going to talk about that next episode, and then 2 weeks from now we'll be back with another movie night where we talk about Underworld. That's our next one.
I'm so excited. I haven't watched that.
I am too.
In years.
I don't know when the last time. I think we talked about this once upon a time. I think I've seen all of them. But I don't think I've seen any of them more than once.
No, I haven't. And I definitely fizzled out. I didn't watch all of them, but I definitely watched the first, I think, 3.
Yeah.
Are there only 3?
Really interesting world. I think there are 3, and then there's maybe a prequel, I think. I'm not sure, honestly.
I saw the first 3.
We'll talk about it next
We'll find
in 2
out.
weeks. There you go. We'll talk about it in 2 weeks. All right. Thank you to everybody who helped suggest this. Thank you to our patrons, especially for helping make this show possible. If you are enjoying the show and you want more of it and all the other content that we do, you can get it early and ad-free at articulatecoven.com/join. $2 or more a month gets you access to everything we do. Thank you all for that. Ashley, anything else before we wrap up?
I got nothing.
All right. You got more episodes of Follow the House of Usher before you. I'm so excited for those conversations to continue.
I'm very excited. Brett and I are going to knock out a couple more of those this week so that we are staying ahead of the game. And it's so much fun. You guys, we're having so much fun talking about that show because it is, like I said, it's just a delicious good time.
And it's so different than Midnight Mass.
Yeah,
that's the thing that strikes me as like
it's very different from Hill House too. Like it's not.
Yes,
you don't have to give this your emotional energy. You just need to come and want to watch rich people get fucked up.
Yes, honestly, it is not. It's bleak and it's dark. It is not bleak and dark like this though.
No, not even a little bit. There is some pleasure to be had.
Oh, there's lots of pleasure. There's lots of pleasure to be had.
Especially
also,
if you're going to eat the rich.
Gugino
is hot. I mean, she's fucking beautiful. So I mean, there's plenty to enjoy.
Man, Carla Gugino is so.
Just got her on the mind.
So I do. I'm gonna go watch Follow the House of Usher again just to get a little bit more of her in there.
Yeah.
All right, folks, y'all can do that too, and then join Ashley and Brett for Follow the House of Usher on Flan again. We'll be back with you in a week to talk about Marius and Mael and some more Anne Rice stuff. And
high
no
drama
Swedish
between
vampires.
those boys. High drama.
We got druid vampires, but no Swedish vampires.
No Swedish vampires for this next time period. We'll take a break from those.
Until we talk to you again, we've been your hosts. I'm Joel.
I'm Ashley.
And we are the Articulate Coven.
Thanks for listening to The Articulate Coven. If you enjoyed the show, check out our groups on Facebook and Discord. Subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Or find us at articulatecoven.com and wherever you listen to podcasts.